Fame fades, wealth vanishes, and even the strongest body weakens with time. But true greatness, that comes from within. It is not about winning over others, but mastering yourself. The best version of you is forged, not found. Today, I give you 6 principles to live by to be the best, not by chance, but by choice. Life is full of uncertainty. No matter how much we plan, how hard we try to shape the world around us, there will always be things beyond our control. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that true peace and power come not from changing the world to fit our desires, but from mastering our own minds, our thoughts, our actions, our responses. Imagine a storm at sea. The winds rage, the waves crash against the ship, and the sailors scramble to keep control. No amount of yelling at the storm will calm it. No amount of frustration will still the waves. The only thing that matters in that moment is what the sailors do. They tighten the sails, steer the ship, and focus on what they can control. This is the essence of Stoicism. The world will always be unpredictable, but we have full command over how we face it. Every day we encounter situations that test us. A stranger cuts us off in traffic. A colleague speaks badly about us. A sudden change in plans disrupts our carefully laid out schedule. In these moments we have 2 choices. We can react with frustration, anger, or stress trying to fight against reality, or we can pause, recognize what is within our control, and respond with clarity. The first choice leads to suffering, the second leads to peace. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that there are only 2 categories in life: things we can control and things we cannot. We can control our thoughts, our choices, and our actions. We cannot control the opinions of others, the circumstances of the world, or even the final outcome of our efforts. By focusing only on what is within our power, we free ourselves from unnecessary pain. We stop wasting energy on things that cannot be changed and instead invest it in improving ourselves. Consider an athlete preparing for a big competition. They can control their training, their effort, their mindset, but they cannot control the weather on the day of the event, the decisions of the judges, or the performance of their competitors. If they spend their time worrying about these things, they are distracted from their true task. But if they put all their energy into training and self-discipline, they give themselves the best possible chance of success. And even if they lose, they can walk away knowing they did everything within their power. That is true victory. Letting go of what we cannot control does not mean we become passive. It does not mean we stop caring or give up on making the world better. It simply means we act where we can and release attachment to the outcome. If we fight for justice, we focus on our efforts, not on whether others accept our message. If we work on a project, we give it our best without being consumed by the fear of failure. This mindset frees us from anxiety and allows us to live with greater purpose and peace. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words remind us that true power is internal. No one can take away our ability to choose our response to life's events. Even in the worst circumstances, we still have control over our thoughts and attitudes. A prisoner can still choose dignity. A person facing loss can still choose gratitude. This is the ultimate freedom. When we truly understand this principle, life becomes lighter. We stop trying to control other people. We stop resisting the natural flow of events. Instead, we focus on what we can do in each moment. We take responsibility for ourselves, and in doing so, we find both power and peace. The storm may rage around us, but inside we remain steady, calm, clear, and in control. Life is not meant to be easy. Hardship is inevitable, yet most people run from it, curse it, or feel victimized by it. The Stoics, however, saw difficulty as a gifted teacher that shapes us, refines us, and reveals who we truly are. Every great individual throughout history has been forged in the fire of struggle, and those who seek comfort above all else never reach their full potential. Imagine a blacksmith hammering a piece of metal. With every strike, the metal becomes stronger, taking shape, becoming something useful, something resilient. Without the fire, without the hammering, it would remain weak and formless. The same is true for us. Every hardship, every challenge, every failure is a hammer strike that strengthens our character, sharpens our mind, and tests our resolve. The weak complain about the hammer. The wise recognize that it is necessary for their transformation. When we face difficulty, our first instinct is often resistance. We ask, why me? We look for a way out. But the Stoics remind us that hardship is not an obstacle, it is the path. Instead of avoiding pain and struggle, we should embrace it, not with bitterness, but with the understanding that it is essential for growth. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Just as a muscle grows through resistance, our character is built through adversity. Consider an athlete training for competition. If they only lift light weights, if they never push beyond their limits, they remain weak. It is the struggle, the moments when they want to quit but push forward anyway, that make them stronger." The same principle applies to life. The challenges we face, heartbreak, failure, loss, disappointment, are not there to destroy us but to build us into something greater. The pain we endure is the price of wisdom, strength, and resilience. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was born into slavery. He had no control over his fate, no privilege, no easy path in life. Yet he became one of the greatest teachers of philosophy, not in spite of his hardships, but because of them. He understood suffering, and instead of allowing it to break him, he used it to shape his mind, to develop an unshakable inner strength. He famously said, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." Many people see struggle as unfair. They believe life should be easier, that suffering is a sign of misfortune. But what if we reversed our perspective? What if we saw every hardship as an opportunity? The loss of a job forces us to adapt, to find new paths. A betrayal teaches us about trust and discernment. A failure humbles us, reminding us to keep improving. Even illness can teach us patience, gratitude, and acceptance. The events themselves are neither good nor bad, it is how we respond to them that matters. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, faced war, plague, and betrayal. He had every reason to complain, to feel burdened by his responsibilities. Yet, instead of resenting his hardships, he saw them as a means to practice virtue. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the core of Stoicism. The very things we see as obstacles are, in reality, the stepping stones to greatness. Imagine looking back on your life years from now. Will you see someone who avoided hardship, who remained comfortable but unfulfilled? Or will you see someone who embraced struggle, who grew stronger with every challenge, who became wiser, more disciplined, more courageous because of what they endured? We do not grow in comfort. We grow in resistance. Hardship is not something to escape but something to welcome. The fire that threatens to consume us is the same fire that forges us into something unbreakable. The choice is ours. Will we resist, complain, and shrink? Or will we embrace difficulty, learn from it, and rise stronger than before? Emotions are a powerful force. They can drive us to great achievements or lead us to ruin. Fear, anger, sadness, and joy, these feelings shape our experiences, but they should never dictate our actions. The Stoics understood this well. They did not advocate for the suppression of emotions but for mastery over them. To be ruled by emotion is to be a slave to impulses. To master them is to be truly free. Imagine a captain steering a ship through a storm. The winds howl, the waves crash, and panic grips the crew. If the captain lets fear take control, chaos ensues, the ship is lost. But if the captain remains calm, assessing the situation rationally, the ship stands a chance. The storm does not disappear, but control is maintained. This is how we must navigate our emotions. Life will bring storms, but if we remain steady, they cannot sink us. Anger is one of the most destructive emotions. It flares up quickly, clouding judgment and leading to words and actions we later regret. A moment of uncontrolled rage can destroy relationships, harm reputations, and create lasting damage. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, warned against this, writing, How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Most things that provoke anger are small, fleeting, and beyond our control. By pausing before reacting, we reclaim power over ourselves. Fear is another emotion that can dominate us if left unchecked. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, these can paralyze us, keeping us from taking risks, from growing, from truly living. But fear itself is often worse than the thing we fear. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The mind magnifies threats, making them seem larger than they are. When we confront fear directly, we often realize it was an illusion. Sadness, too, is part of life. Loss, disappointment, and hardship bring pain, and Stoicism does not deny this. But dwelling endlessly in sorrow serves no purpose. The past cannot be changed. What matters is how we move forward. Instead of resisting pain, we must accept it, learn from it, and continue. True strength is not in avoiding sadness, but in not letting it define us. Emotional mastery does not mean we feel nothing. It means we do not allow emotions to control us. We acknowledge them, understand them, and choose how to respond. The Stoics trained themselves through daily reflection, questioning their reactions, and reminding themselves of what truly matters. A person who masters their emotions is unshakable. They do not react impulsively to insults, setbacks, or misfortune. They act with wisdom, not impulse. They are like a rock in a storm, unmoved by the chaos around them. This is true power, not control over others, but control over oneself. To master emotions is to master life itself. Most people live according to the opinions of others. They crave approval, fear judgment, and shape their actions based on what society expects of them. But the Stoics teach a different way, to live by virtue, not by the shifting opinions of the crowd. Virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline is the only true guide to a meaningful life. Opinions change, trends fade, and external validation is fleeting. But virtue is unshakable. Consider how easily people are swayed by public opinion. One day they are praised, the next they are criticized. A person who chases approval is like a leaf in the wind, constantly blown in different directions, never grounded, never at peace. Marcus Aurelius warned against this, reminding himself in Meditations, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." Living for the approval of others is a trap. No matter how much we try to please everyone, we will always face criticism. The wise person ignores the noise and follows their principles. Virtue is the only standard worth living by. It is the measure of who we truly are, not how we are perceived. Wisdom allows us to make sound decisions. Courage helps us stand firm in our beliefs. Justice ensures we treat others fairly. Self-discipline keeps us from being ruled by desires and distractions. A person who follows virtue does not need the validation of others because they know they are doing what is right. History is full of examples of those who stood by their principles despite opposition. Socrates, one of the greatest philosophers, was condemned to death for challenging conventional thinking. He could have saved himself by conforming, by saying what people wanted to hear, but he chose to remain true to his values. He understood that living honorably was more important than merely surviving. True strength lies in holding to one's principles. Even when the world disagrees, living by virtue requires self-awareness. We must constantly ask ourselves, am I acting out of integrity, or am I seeking approval? Am I doing what is right, or what is easy? The opinions of others may be loud, but they do not determine our worth. We are responsible for our own character, and that is what truly defines us. When we free ourselves from the need for validation, we gain something far greater: inner peace. We are no longer troubled by the shifting judgments of others. We no longer act out of fear of rejection. We live with confidence, knowing that our actions align with our deepest values. This is the path of the Stoic. This is the path to true fulfillment. Procrastination is the silent thief of time. It whispers excuses, convinces us that tomorrow is a better day to begin, and lulls us into complacency. But the Stoics saw this for what it is: a weakness of the mind, a refusal to take responsibility for our own lives. The present moment is all we have, And delaying action is the same as wasting life itself. To become great, to achieve anything of value, we must act now. Many people wait for the perfect moment. They wait for motivation, for better circumstances, for more confidence. But perfection is an illusion. There will never be a moment when everything aligns exactly as we want. Those who succeed are not the ones who wait for the right time. They are the ones who make the time right through action. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, warned against this when he said, "While we wait for life, life passes. Every second spent hesitating is a second lost forever." Imagine two people, both with the same goal. One spends years planning, waiting for the right conditions, fearing failure. The other begins immediately, taking small steps, learning along the way, adapting to obstacles. Who will succeed? The one who acts, not the one who waits. Action leads to progress. Hesitation leads to regret. Fear is one of the biggest reasons people delay. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. But the Stoics remind us that fear is just an illusion created by the mind. The only way to overcome it is through action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." This is a call to action, a reminder that we always have a choice, to start now or to let life slip by. Another common excuse is the belief that we need more knowledge before we begin. While preparation is valuable, overthinking can be a form of avoidance. Experience is the best teacher, and real learning happens through doing. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, taught that philosophy is not about talking or theorizing but about applying principles in daily life. The same is true for any pursuit. Success comes from action, not endless preparation. Life is short and time is the one resource we can never get back. The Stoics often reflected on memento mori, the reminder that death is inevitable, not to create fear but to inspire urgency. If you knew you had little time left, what would you do differently? Would you keep delaying, or would you take action now? This mindset transforms hesitation into motivation. The path to mastery, success, and fulfillment is built on action. Dreams remain dreams unless we take steps to make them real. Progress is not made by wishing, but by working. The greatest achievements in history did not happen by chance. They were the result of people who took action despite uncertainty. Start now. Take the first step. Do not wait for the perfect moment because it does not exist. What exists is today, this moment, and the decision to move forward. Act, and you will become unstoppable. Death is the great certainty of life, yet most people spend their days avoiding the thought of it. They distract themselves, pretend it is far away, or fear it so much that they refuse to truly live. The Stoics took the opposite approach. Instead of running from death, they embraced it as a teacher, a reminder that time is limited and that every moment is precious. By accepting death, we free ourselves from fear and learn how to live with purpose. Memento mori, remember you will die. This phrase was not meant to be morbid but to inspire urgency. When we acknowledge that our time is finite, we stop wasting it. We stop postponing our dreams, delaying our actions, and taking the present for granted. We become fully aware that every conversation, every experience, every breath is a gift that could be taken at any moment. This is not meant to depress us, but to awaken us. Imagine someone who lives in constant fear of death. They avoid risks, hold back from expressing their true thoughts, and cling to a false sense of security. But despite all their efforts, death still comes. They may reach the end of their life realizing they never truly lived, only existed. The Stoics saw this as a tragedy. It is not death that should scare us, but the thought of never having lived fully. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." People often say life is too short, but in reality, they do not use the time they have wisely. Hours are lost on meaningless distractions, on worrying about things that do not matter, on chasing wealth or status instead of wisdom and virtue. If we lived each day as if it were our last, our priorities would change. We would focus on what truly matters: character, relationships, meaningful work, and self-improvement. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome, reflected constantly on death. He reminded himself that even the greatest rulers, philosophers, and warriors eventually turn to dust. No amount of fame or fortune can change this reality. Knowing this, he urged himself to act with integrity, to do good, and to live without fear. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is the mindset of someone who has mastered life. By accepting death, we also learn to appreciate the present. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we stop taking things for granted. A simple conversation with a loved one, the feeling of sunlight on our skin, the sound of laughter, these small moments become treasures when we realize they will not last forever. Instead of fearing loss, we embrace what we have while we have it. This perspective does not make life meaningless, it makes it more meaningful. If life were endless, there would be no urgency, no motivation to strive, no reason to cherish each day. It is precisely because life is temporary that it is so valuable. Death is not the enemy. The real enemy is wasting time, living without purpose, and letting fear hold us back. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control when or how we will die, but we can control how we live. When we no longer fear death, we become truly free. We are no longer afraid to take risks, to pursue our passions, to stand by our values. We stop delaying happiness and start living with intention. The person who has accepted death does not waste a single moment. They love deeply, act boldly, and leave nothing undone. So let us not fear death. Let us use it as a guide to live fully, to be present, and to focus on what truly matters. Because in the end, when death finally comes, the only thing that will matter is whether we truly lived.